In this video, we're going to talk about positioning yourself for dock fishing. So we're out here dock fishing. I have the power prawn, so I have a power prawn jig, and the key is to let this jig just bounce along the bottom right next to these pilings. And we want to position ourselves so that we're down current to the actual dock so that we can retrieve our shrimp, right? It's going to be bouncing on the bottom with the current. That's where the fish are expecting their next meal to come from. If you don't know which way the current flow is going, you can look at the dock piling. If you scan down here and look at that dock piling, you can see there's a current eddy right there on the right-hand side. That means that the current is coming left to right, and now we know that we're going into the current. So what I like to do is I like to position myself going into the current, and I like to get myself at an angle, like a 30-degree angle. That way I can get my cast, I can cast past the dock, and then I can get a measure on how close or how far it's going to be going to that piling. And then I can just wait and let the current start swinging it over, and then start just doing a nice little jig right along. You want to get right against that first piling. Most of the fish, the biggest fish, are going to be right in front of that first piling. So that's my target one every time. First pilings, and all else being equal, that's going to be the best. And then I get a couple casts by that. Right? They don't always hit it the first time. Couple casts by the first one, and then I start fishing the back one. So we're going to cast out there, let it sink, right? You want to always make sure that you're matching the weight to the depth and the current flow so that you can make sure to get down to the bottom without taking too long or without just totally dragging. And then again, just cover as much of these dock pilings as possible. And not all docks are created equal, so sometimes it takes a while. And so now we covered the first piling. Now I want to get the second piling, so that requires a bit of a skip cast. So get down there, and just for the weight, it takes about maybe 2 seconds for this bait to get down. I give it the 2 seconds. Oh, there! Oh, just had a bite. So that one was hanging. Oh, there we are. Oh, missed another one. That might be some jacks hanging out there. Yeah. So I just gave it a couple seconds to get down. That was a bad cast. I'm just going to go ahead and reel that one up. Again, if you're more than a foot or two from the pilings, the odds of catching stuff totally diminishes. So it's all about getting a good cast in there. All right, now we fished that dock. Now time to go up the next one, right? And just keep on doing this. And I like to cast in the middle too. Sometimes there's some fish that are just cruising in between the docks. But again, the odds are that the most bites are going to happen right at the pilings. So in this case, again, we're now casting range to this next dock. Get a cast up underneath that boat. Before doing casts like that, make sure you're comfortable with skip casting and just make sure to never ever hit a boat. It's the key is treat it like it's your own. If you're not comfortable enough casting underneath your brand new boat, then don't cast under somebody else's. So now we can reach the far piling, the upcurrent piling. We cast beyond, let it sink. Now we're going to do our little jig, and we're going to bounce that lure right up along these pilings. Let it sink all the way down. Now, oh, there we are, got him. Ooh, nice snook, nice snook. So that one was right under the dock. That's the key of just making sure you're comfortable with your cast. Woo, he's going back underneath the dock. Woo, 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 woo. All right, my line's around the piling. There we go. My trolling motor's not working. There we go. This is where having some strong line is helpful. Strong knots. All right, I think we got him out. We dodged a bullet on that one. But yeah, it's all about just getting that jig. Make sure that jig is down there. Whoa. Make sure that jig is down there. Yeah, this thing's fighting way bigger, like it's way bigger than it is. Yeah, make sure that the jig's down there. And get yourself some good casts, and you can catch an absolute ton of fish doing this. Go ahead and get this guy up. This guy almost got the best of us a couple times. Couldn't resist the power prawn. There we are. That's not even that big of a snook, and that thing sure does put up a fight. That's the importance of having some good line, good knots. Let's go ahead and let this guy go. And so that's the key, especially if you're in snook territory. Make sure that you have at least 30 pound mono. I don't like fluoro. fluoro gets abrased too easily. The snook chew right through it. So what I like is just regular mono, and even then, that snook almost chewed through it. And that wasn't even that big of a snook. They get way bigger. 40 if the water's a little bit murky and I know there's a big snook in the area, I bump it up to 40. But in this case, we're early spring. There's not many big snook out here yet. So now I'm sticking with 30, but in a couple months, or really in about a month, I'm gonna go all 40, just so that when those big snook hit, we're ready for them. So I'm gonna go ahead and retie. Anytime your line is like this, make sure to retie. All right, so just release that snook and everything's back, and you replace the line. And so in many cases, when you catch one, there's more in there. And so what we're gonna do, we've stayed right at the same spot. So I'm casting another cast right underneath there. And hopefully it's enough time where the commotion has died down and snook are calm again. In many cases, it's always worth another cast. It doesn't work every time, obviously, but in many cases where there's one, there's more. And we'll just do, again, 2 casts is plenty to assess if there's more, because we have plenty more docks. As you can see, we have plenty more docks to cover, and so we have no shortage of good spots to check out. And as you're going from dock to dock, always make sure, just keep an eye out for anything different on the shoreline. Like right here, I can see there's a little grass bed that's sitting out right about there. I'm gonna go right on the edge of it, because again, in many cases, those predators will hang around just anything different. But the pilings are always the best. You know, day in, day out, the pilings hold the most fish. That's what's gonna have, you know, as we talked about, that's gonna have just the most protection. Where dolphin can't get in there and get them as much. They're really protected. Even fishermen, not many fishermen target them like this. And so they're the least pressured of anything. So that's almost always gonna have the most bites. And so now we're a little bit close to this dock, so we're gonna get another cast. Again, just go right there, and so that way I cast it beyond it, let it sink, and now I'm going right, oh, I got one. Oh man, that's something small. So we went right along the edge. That was not a surprise at all that we got a strike there. Looks like it messed up my shrimp. And so the benefit of getting close like this is that you can cast right down the edge and fish 2 pilings at once. The con though is if you do hook one on that first piling, now not only do you have to keep it away from the first piling, but now you have the second piling right there and they can really get you around it. So I don't often get this close to do a parallel retrieve like this, but it is doable. For the smaller fish, it's no problem, but when you do hook that big snook or that big redfish, you're in trouble. The odds significantly go down. No luck there. So off to the next dock. And just keep on doing this over and over again. So we're gonna fish the upcurrent piling of the dock. That's where I usually catch the most fish, and nothing there, so we're gonna reel it up. Do the same for the downcurrent side. So if you're gonna only do 2 casts on a dock, if you're going fast, those are the 2 casts you want. All right, so doing the upcurrent side of this piling. First piling right up against it, nothing. Oh, there we are. I was reeling up for the next cast and a grouper came out and followed it. Yeah, so in most cases, you're gonna catch your fish. You're gonna catch your fish right up under the pilings. This one decided to investigate a little bit more, and although he was surely hanging by the piling, he came up probably about 5 feet off and came up and struck. So we'll let him go, and especially with this grouper, when there's one, there's usually more. So now we know there's a grouper, at least one group under the stock. I'm gonna get a cast up underneath. I'm gonna bump this out a little bit. Now we might have bumped up a little bit too close for that one. All right, so with this dock fishing, depth control is crucial. So I've switched over to a different rod. This has a heavier jig. We have a dock that's sitting out further than the others, right? You can see this dock is a lot further out than these ones up ahead, so it's gonna be a little bit deeper. And so we wanna make sure that we have a little bit heavier jig head to cover it. So again, same premise, same exact premise, just it's a little bit deeper. So we're casting up current of the dock. We're gonna retrieve it with the current and just bounce it down the slope. And just we're gonna cover the dock just the same exact way. So I've switched to a heavier weight and I've gone to bait caster, but the same premise holds true. Doesn't matter what type of reel you're using, doesn't really matter that the actual size of the jig itself, the same mechanics hold true. So cast over it, I went a little bit far, so I'm gonna go ahead and jig it before it hits the bottom. And so now we're right next to that piling. Close as we could possibly be to that piling without getting snagged on it. And that's where most of the action is gonna happen. So just jigging. That was the first piling. Next cast, we're gonna do the back piling. And again, it's all about just targeting every bit of this, every bit of these docks. And so this next dock goes up shallower, and so we'll probably switch over, I'll probably need to switch over to an even shallower runner than before. So always like to have at least 2 different weights, sometimes 3, just to make sure. So now we got underneath the dock, yeah, just to make sure that we can effectively cover every situation as quickly and efficiently as possible. I can't believe there's not a grouper near that this deep dock there. So we'll try one on the down current side. Sometimes this works, especially with this heavier jig. I can get down there deep. And then we're gonna go check out this next dock. Oh, there we are, got something. Let's see if we can get him out away from those pilings. Fortunately, it's something small. Looks like we got a little mangrove snapper. Oh, no, little grouper. A little small grouper. So these grouper, they are tenacious. That lure is just, just barely bigger than it. They don't play around. So for this next dock, it's shallower. So now I'm gonna go ahead and just automatically switch. Go back to the other one. All right, so back to the other rod, a little bit lighter. Get a low cast, that bird was on there. You always wanna make sure you never skyrocket across a dock when there's a bird on it, because in many cases they'll fly away when you cast, and you don't want them flying into your line. That's how most birds get snagged. So you always want to make sure that if there ever is a bird, cast a little bit short, do a line drive, and just make sure that those birds don't fly into your line. That's definitely been an issue that I've seen on forums. And just a simple trick like that will make sure that you don't come across that issue. All right, so sometimes you'll be going down dock lines and you'll come across situations like this where there's just piling sitting up there, no dock at all. It's not as good, those aren't generally as good as having the dock above, but certainly worth the cast. So I like to cast in between the pilings. The outer ones are generally best, but sometimes the shallow ones are, and just as always, right? Just make sure to cast up current, let the lure kind of swing back towards the piling, let the current, take your lure up there close, and you can catch a ton of fish doing this. All right, so one tip when dock fishing is always look for ropes going in the water. If you look underneath this boat, underneath those motors, there's a rope going down. What that almost always is crab traps. And those crab traps it's just like a mangrove tree, it is shockingly good at snagging whatever lure you have down there, and they're gonna win, right? You don't wanna be messing with people's crab traps. So keep an eye out for those. Make sure to just to not cast near them. Right, you can cast a little bit away, like that one's probably a little bit too close. I'll go ahead and lift it before it hits the bottom. And docks that have that, and sometimes they have multiple crab traps, and so you pretty much just have to skip those docks. It's not worth it. You don't want to be losing your lures. But the fact that it's over on the right side, I can go ahead and sneak a cast in there and just fish the up current side of this dock. Right, that's okay. I just always want to make sure. Usually they're going to be vertical. So just one little thing to keep an eye out of. Yeah, and it's surprisingly common how many people do have those crab traps down there. So just always keep an eye out for it. That'll certainly help save a bunch of lures. All right, with the dock that has a lot of nice pilings and some good current flow, you can cast up into it from a little bit up current. Just know that the odds of getting a big fish out is going to be small, but you can do this for flounder fishing. You can just let the current kind of swing your lure right up along the edge of those pilings and have success. But if you're going after bigger snook or redfish, then that's not going to work. You always want to make sure that you're down current or at least cross current from the spot. So for bigger, like for this dock, again, fishing for bigger fish, I'm going to cast up current, just as we've talked about. Let it fall right down near that front piling, and just jig it right on through. And then we'll get a cast up underneath the dock and then pull it by the back piling. That's where most of the action is. These outer 2 pilings is gonna be where the biggest fish usually are. It's usually going to be the prime feeding spot, and those big fish will basically win the competition for getting the best. Oh, for getting the best spot. There we are. There's something. A little small guy. Yep. So here's a trout. So yeah, it's, you know, you can never know what you're going to catch doing this type of fishing. We've got a snook, we've got grouper. Now we've got a trout. Now if we just get a redfish, we'll have ourselves a slam. Going to make ourselves, when you are fighting the fish and when you're going to look down to get it, you know, just make sure to keep an eye out, keep awareness on where you are. Want to make sure that you don't drift into a piling or anything like that. Let's get this guy up. There's a solid trout, a fatty. Came up and hit the power prawn. All right, there we go, jig's out. Fish is back, ready for more action. All right, so if you're fishing a new dock line or you're fishing docks that you know there's structure underneath, a lot of people do sink stuff under the docks, it's very smart to use a weedless jig of some sort. This is a Slam Shady 2.0 on a weedless jig head. This is my favorite. It skips well, it looks good in the water, it gets a ton of strikes. Most importantly is it doesn't snag very often at all, and the hookup ratio is good. So the hookup ratio isn't quite as good as a normal jig head, but the amount of snags that are prevented is well worth it. When switching over to this type of weedless setup, you can get a lot more aggressive. So when I'm doing this, usually targeting either flounder or sea trout or smaller snook, you can just skip way up under these docks without the fear of getting snagged. Oh, there we are, got something. Let's see what we got. Oh, snook. Whoa, whoa. And so in this case, we just have 10-pound lines, so we have to be a little bit more careful. Got to make sure we keep them out of the stuff. There, I saw a little snook, not a giant. But yeah, that's just the benefit of these weedless jig heads, where we can really cast in there aggressively, skip it up underneath there, and catch a whole ton of fish while barely, while totally minimizing the amount of snags you get. So we have some waves coming. Want to make sure we don't get the boat blown into this dock, so we're going to kind of motor us up there. I'll let this snook keep fighting a little bit. Always want to make sure that you don't bump up against these docks. There we are, we're in the clear. We'll go ahead and get this guy off. All right, there we are. So yeah, Slam Shady, weedless jig head, perfect spot, right in the corner of its mouth. Let him off. Let this guy get back, get bigger. Aim him toward the dock. Let him go right back where he came from. And as far as just getting ready for the next one, super easy, right? Same shade is still in good shape. Just get that little barb, put it back on the hook, ready to go for number 2. Yeah, if you don't yet have these types of jig heads, highly recommend giving them a shot. I'll put a link down below on where you can get them on our shop. And for all Insider Club members, you of course get the massive savings and all this stuff. So link down below. Make sure to pick some up if you don't yet have any before you ever go dock fishing. Well, that wraps it up for the on the water part of this video, and just really wanted to talk about tackle. And whether you're fishing, spinning or bait casting tackle, it's very important is to be using the right strength gear, because with dock fishing, these fish are going to be near structure, and a lot of big fish hold around docks as well. So you really can't get away with light tackle. We really do not want to lose our lures and leave lures in the environment, especially in a fish's mouth. So this is not where you want to be using 10-pound line or something light. I would say at a minimum be using 20-pound braid or even higher. For spinning, I go with 20, because with spinning gear, as the line gets thicker and thicker, the casting performance really goes down quickly. And so again, for spinning tackle, I'm using 20-pound braid. I would say at least a 2,500 size reel, in most cases 3,000s. I do use the Daiwa BG a lot, and that's those reels are bigger than most others. So for that one, I go 2,500. Otherwise, I'm using at least a 3,000. And for the rod too, make sure to have a nice sturdy rod. This is not where we want those wet noodle rods, those medium light rods. So I would say go medium heavy for pretty much any rod brand. This is a TFO, and even with that, I go medium heavy, and this is rated for 8 to 17 pounds. I would say that's on the low end. In most cases, I would say go with the rod that's a 10 to 20. As far as the line rating. For bait casting, this is where we can actually get more powerful, and so I've become more and more of a fan of bait casting setups, and it really came down to dock fishing, because with bait cast you can go to thicker lines and the casting performance really doesn't go down at all. Plus, these super small reels that are lightweight can pack a punch as well, And so now for bait casting, I'm using a 30-pound braid, and I'm finding just great results with it. I've really been happy with it. And so this one in particular is a Tatula from Daiwa, and the rod is from Cashin. This is a made in the USA Cashin rod. It's a 7.4 rod. I'd probably go 7 on my next one, but again, it's a 10 to 20 as well. We don't want the wet noodles. We need some power, and so this dock fishing is a great way to get a lightweight setup for bait casting. You have a lightweight setup that packs a punch. So this is the type of fishing where I am using a lot of bait casting. So that's it. I just really wanted to emphasize the tackle. It's a very important thing. A lot of people will use the same flats fishing gear for dock fishing, and that is a mistake in my opinion, because there will likely be many instances where you hook into a big fish and they get you around the structure before you can do anything. So thank you so much for your time watching the video. Any questions at all about this positioning, leave a comment down below. Love to hear from you. I'll be happy to help however possible. Just know that this type of positioning is really for artificial lures. If you're using live bait, there's going to be a different technique involved, because in that case, you're going to need to get up current from the docks, and you can actually drift your baits back down through. You don't have the luxury of doing that with artificials. So for artificials that you saw in this video, you need to really position down current from the dock and cast up to it so you can retrieve it with the current. For live bait, that's different. So just wanted to make sure that was noted as well. So anyhow, thank you once again for your time. Hope to see you again soon.